This slide here says studio tour. We're going to have a look at a studio tour in Soundtrap, go around the product, see how straightforward and intuitive it is. We're going to make some music and stop me yappering on because we want to hear some music. And then towards the end, we can get Q&A if you have any questions. If you have any questions during my presentation, feel free to jump in the chat. And David and Keith are running the chat. If you want to interrupt me or stop me, I can do that. But we'll show a few things and then we'll definitely stop for questions. And if you want me to show you something additional towards the end, that's great. So I'm going to show you a few things for the next 30 minutes, roughly speaking. So let's jump out of this. Escape. Okay, so I'm going to jump into Soundtrap. Now, I've come into a Soundtrap EDU account, an education account. And you can see I'm only using 4 of 200 seats. I want to add students or add teachers, can invite them in via email. We can talk about that later if you want the management of it, but it's relatively straightforward, where you've got your projects all listed that you can access, jump into the studio and see them in detail, or you can go to my groups, where you can set up a group, create a group, just very simply key in a group, and we'll put Australia 1 and add me to create it, add me to this group. There's Australia 1. There's an invite code. I can share that with the class. They go to Soundtrap and jump in, and then they've got that, and it's their own account. There's EDU admin, where we can manage, add students or add teachers. There's lesson plans right across the curriculum, as well as for music. And there's also a bundle of resources, how to do things, videos, classroom ideas, all sorts of stuff. There's a huge amount of support for that. But let's go to the interesting bit, which is in the studio. So when we go into the studio, we've got an option of music or podcast. It doesn't really matter which one you click terribly, but the music one, when you go into the music, the main difference is it's set out in bars of music. If you go into podcast, it's not set out in bars of music, it's set out in minutes and seconds. It's more like a timeline. So when we're working in music, we probably want to work in bars. So I'm going to click on music. And then you'll see it's a very bare screen. There's not a lot to see, which I think is quite encouraging. If you go to most music software programs, you're kind of hit with a wall of, oh boy, do I need a physics degree or an International Space Station badge to fly this ship? In Soundtrap, it's very, very straightforward. If you want to browse loops, you would just click on here. If you want to go to the Patterns Beatmaker, you just click on here. If you want to import a file, an MP3 file, just choose a file and then pick one. So I'll just pick one here. There's a WAV file, right? And then we've imported it. I'm going to click on loops to get rid of that. If I want to get rid of this, see these 3 little dots? I can just delete the track and get rid of it immediately. It's quite intuitive what we do in Soundtrap. So add a new track. You can click here or you can click here. Browse loops, Patterns Beatmaker, play the synthesizer. Just click on it, and then I'm just using my mouse. Or I can use my small USB connected keyboard. Okay, or indeed, I can use my QWERTY. If we don't have a connected USB keyboard. Okay, jump out of that. So there you have it, browse loops, Patterns Beatmaker. I'll just press play and you'll see how it loops through. We can stick in a kick drum, snare, very straightforward, or we can see it on the actual instrument, or we can see it in piano roll. If we want to extend the piano roll here, just press the plus button. The controls at the bottom: record, stop, rewind to the beginning, play, fast forward. If we want to change a note, we can do that, something like that, and then just play again. If we want to change the drum instrument, this is called vanilla for some unknown reason. And I'll just change that from here to machines. We go to kits, and we can have what we call a clean black kit. And it'll be the same pattern but different sounds. If you want a wee bit of reverb on the drum, all relatively straightforward. Stop. So that's a whistle stop tour. I'm just going to take that out again, delete the track, and delete that track. So we've got a bare screen again. So there we are. We can browse loops. Now we haven't browsed the loops yet, so let's do that. They're good. And I'm just going to move me and some participants and zoom away. Right. Browse loops. So I can browse here, or I can click on this browse loops icon. So we come in here, and what I'm going to do is just make a little bit of music very quickly. So I'm going to pick bass, and I can listen to different basses by auditioning them, by clicking on them. And there's hundreds. They're all alphabetically listed. You can heart them and favorite them. Got some favorites here. I like this bass retro funk. I'm going to double click on it, pull it into the window. I'm going to click off here just to make this smaller so we can see what we've got. Go back to loops and we'll add some drums. Okay, so we can see how quickly it is to build up. So we've got bass, we've got drums, a little piano loop. But if we want to add a real instrument, then we would go add new track. Now again, we've got the option here, but I'm just going to click add new track. I get rid of the loops by clicking off the icon there. To add new track, I'm actually going to expand it slightly so we can see a wee bit more spaced out like that. You'll see along the top here, we've got 8 bars of music. This purple bar is a loop, a cycle mode. I can click on cycle mode here or here. So I can do the same thing in different places, but add new track. And we've got options of voices and microphones, pianos and keyboards, guitar and bass, etc. Strings, brass, woodwinds, and so on. I'm going to jump to piano and keyboard, just click it. And then again with my mouse, or I play on my USB connected keyboard. And the really exciting thing for me is, as a music teacher, there's virtually no noticeable latency for me in this. Now, by latency, we just mean that when you play the note, it actually sounds, and it doesn't. You don't play the note and then it comes in a third of a second later. So it's great. No latency, you can play nicely, and that's it's all live on the internet here. Nothing in the machine, no discs or software as such. It's all in the ether. So what I'm going to do now is, if I wanted to change my piano sound to a different type of piano sound or any other type of piano sound, I can just come across to pianos, and I've got all these different studio grand upright piano warm roads. I'm going to go to this whirly chorus, and it loads very, very quickly. I'm going to give it a little bit of reverb. And then I'm going to play along with my track. Now to record, it's just as simple as this. Press the record button. Now, to come in at the right time, if you want to come in bang on the first beat, you're probably best working with the metronome. So we click the metronome here. Instead of off, we have on. And then we've got options of a click, a tick, a hi-hat, or a clave. I like the clave because it's very crisp, and it's actually a slightly more musical sound than the click or the tick or whatever. I like the clave. If I want a 2-bar count in, I set it to that. If I want a 1-bar count in, I would set it to that. So I'm going to have a 2-bar count in. And here we go. Back to the beginning, record. Okay, so I've just recorded in that little bit of piano, and we'll see that we've got the MIDI data like that. And if we want to look at it closely, okay, now if we want to change, well, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little section. I'll grab this section, and then I'm going to quantize it to the nearest eighth or quaver. And you'll see they all move tightly up. These ones haven't moved because I don't necessarily want them all to change. If you're doing a jazzy little piece, you don't want to quantize the life out of it. But let's see if you notice a very tight. And then a different feel. Okay, so if we want to change a note, whoops, that's all the notes. Take one note and move it. So we can edit like that. If we want to draw in another note, we can just draw one in. Want to shorten it like that, lengthen it. Pretty intuitive and straightforward. If you want to change the volume of the note, just grab the note. We've got a maximum of 127 on the MIDI data, right down to 0 or 1. Okay, and if we want to grab a section and change the volume, we can relatively change all the volumes. If we want to get rid of notes, like that, just they've gone. So, if I want to put them back, I do undo, delete. So that's really the management of that bit of it. So you input with the keyboard, or I could have input with the QWERTY keyboard, computer keyboard, and then I can edit the notes. I can move them, I can delete them, I can change the volume. So it's pretty intuitive and relatively straightforward. I hope you would agree. Right, now, because I'm not working with headphones, I'm actually going to just mute these tracks. If I want to mute the tracks, I'll just click the mute button. And they've all gone. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want to show you recording in some audio. So if I go to add new track and voice and microphones, I'm going to do a little test to get the level right. So this funny little icon here does that for us. So I click start test, and it says sing, speak, or play your instrument. Checking volume, play louder, and it will sort out that. Now I could have been doing that with a clarinet or a violin or any other acoustic instrument. And I'm actually just using my computer microphone here in a very silent space, which makes life straightforward. It's much more challenging, obviously, in a classroom, a noisy classroom. So sometimes you're asking young people to find relatively quiet spaces in the corridor, in the cupboards or wherever sometimes. Or of course, they can be working with their headphones and maybe with a headset with a microphone round. So there's all sorts of different ways of working in this, but I'm not using headphones, as you can see. Here, I've got an option for my voice to be all sorts of funny sounds. I'm just going to go for the dry voice, no reverb on it, and click start recording. I'm not using headphones, and then OK. Monitoring has been switched off to protect your ears. Very kind, thank you. And Sorry, the other thing I need to do is I don't want that metronome clicking away when I'm speaking, so I'll get rid of that as well. And we'll start recording again. And it'll give me a silent countdown. So it's good morning from me, good afternoon for you, or perhaps just g'day, mate. Right. And you'll see the audio has been recorded, and I can move this audio that I've recorded, and let's just see what we've got. So it's good morning from me, good afternoon for you, or perhaps just g'day, mate. Okay, and now the next thing I'm going to do is see this transcript thing. This is quite an exciting feature in Soundtrap, transcript. If I go to transcribe the voice track that I've just done, select voice track, you'll see we've got the bass, which we've recorded, we've got the drums, we've got the piano, and we've got the microphone. No point in trying to transcribe these, nothing would happen, but I'm going to transcribe what I've just said. Or it might have been a singing voice. It's going to allow me to confirm, about to transcribe the mic part into text. Soundtrap can only transcribe voice tracks. Okay, so here we go. And then I can check the progress here. Let's see. Yeah, it says 1 minute. It's done it already. Very quick. So let's see what that looks like. So it's good morning from me, good afternoon for you, or perhaps just g'day, mate. Okay, so it hasn't picked up that quite right. So what I'm going to do is, or perhaps g'day, mate. So I'm going to select just get a mate, which that's quite funny, but that's not what we want. And then I'm just pressing E for edit on my computer keypad. And I'm going back to just type in G''day, return. And so I've edited it. So it doesn't always pick up perfectly in my non-Australian accent. Maybe if you guys had said it, it would have worked absolutely fine. But we've now got... So it's good morning from me, good afternoon for you, or perhaps just... Oh, I forgot. I shouldn't have deleted. Right, hang on. So, apologies. I'll edit again. E for edit. And I just want to... Or perhaps just... G'day. Apologies. It's early in the morning for me, that's my only excuse. So it's good morning from me, good afternoon for you, or perhaps just g'day, mate. Now, here's another fun thing. If I get rid of from me, I'll just go to my delete button, and for you, my delete button, and let's see what happens now. So it's good morning, good afternoon, or perhaps just g'day, mate. So there you have real-time editing with the text. So we're not going into the audio file to chop up the waveform. We're actually doing it as a text editor. Right, so I'm just going to jump back to settings, come back out of podcast tools, interactive transcript, come out of that, and we can see what we've got. Now, if I was working with some audio in like a little, a radio program or whatever we were doing, or this was a singer, and we just wanted to be able to hear this, I'm going to click off these things and see what the levels are like, see what it all sounds like. So, it's good morning, good afternoon, or perhaps just g'day, mate. This is getting apart. Obviously I could turn the volume up on this, and that's where we turn the volume up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the bass here. Now see this funny squiggle? This is called automation. So I'm going to automate the bass. I'm going to move this. This is called the playhead. I'm going to move the playhead to where the audio here starts and automate it. here, automation volume, and I'll just click on here and pull this down like so. I'll see where the audio finishes, it's in line with that. I'll click on here and do that. And then I'll click in here, and the bass is now automated. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the drums. So automation, click on here, select volume. I'll move the playhead to where the audio starts so I can see exactly where I'm working. Pull this down a bit, move this along to the end of the audio because I can see it in the wave form at the bottom. And then that's been done as well. I'm not so worried about this here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the volume down a little bit, or I could do an automation on this where I just had the whole volume level was just down a little bit. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. And then the MIDI data here, if we come in here, and we'll see where hang on a second, just see where the audio starts here. And so I'll jump into the MIDI data, and you'll see it's all lined up here. So I don't want this note clashing with what I'm saying. So I'm actually just going to get rid of these notes. Actually, maybe, tell you what, I'll maybe leave the first one and get rid of them. And then just check where this finishes here, in here. And I'll just get rid of all that messy stuff. Right, now it's not going to be the perfect solution, but you can see where we're kind of going with this. So let's see what we've got now. So it's good morning, good afternoon, or perhaps just good day, mate. So we're seeing the functionality of Soundtrap here in automation. We're seeing the functionality in muting a track. So just supposing we want to play the whole thing without the bass, the drums. So the flexibility and ease of use and intuitiveness, if that's a word, is pretty good within Soundtrap. So I'm going to jump right out of this whole thing. I could save it. Let's see, if I wanted to save it, I just press save and it'll save. If I want to save as, it'll be a different version of something. So I can call it anything I like and it'll save to my projects. So just call it song 32, whatever, and it's saved, click OK. And then it syncs and saves the project, and then it's done very quickly, and that's gone into my projects. And I can call that up on any device, anytime, anywhere, because it's now saved to the cloud. But what we'll do is we'll just go back to profile, and we'll go to enter studio and do something else. So I'm going to enter the studio, and I'm going to show you an example of how you might make a song or a little musical arrangement for young people that they could do. I'll just let you see this. I think it's quite fun. It's using a guitar strumming. Now, whether the young person can strum or play the guitar is one thing. If they can't, like me, I'm not very good in the guitar. I'm going to go browse loops, and I'm going to jump into guitar. And I know the loop I'm looking for is, so many, has got a number 2 attached to it. So I'm going to just, let's just hear some of these. Okay. And it's been favorited. Okay, so what I'm looking for is, it's called an E minor strum pattern. So here we've got acoustic strum patterns, and I'll heart this. Now, I want my song to be in the key V minor, so I'm going to select E minor at the bottom here. I want it to be tempo of 95, not 120. So if I click on the tempo, now I can tap on here, and there I can do it like that, or I can adjust it to 95 and confirm. So I've now set, now if the young persons want to set a tempo and they don't know what the tempo is, you just get them to tap on the tempo thing, and that sets it for what they would like. And then they maybe remember next time it was 95, so they just go to 95 or whatever. Anyway, let's select that strum E minor chord. I just realised it is early in the morning and I've made a mistake. It should be 120. I wanted it to be 120. I could, another way of doing it is just type in the number. There we go, adjust. So it's very, very quickly sorted. I wanted it to be 120. The next example I'm going to do is 95. Sorry. Here we go. Okay, so we've got that. Now what I'm going to do is stretch it out a little bit. So we've got the plus and minus down here to stretch it out a little bit so it's easier to work with and see. This is what's called the playhead. I can have the playhead free moving, or I can have it with this little magnet whereby it will go to the nearest increment that we've set, and we can set grid sizes and all that sort of thing. But I'm just going to let it be the way it is at the minute. 2 bars of music. We're in the key V minor. Well, I want to cut this and change it to A minor. So I go Command E on my computer keypad, Command E, and it cuts. I take it to the end of bar 4 and do another cut. Take it to bar 6 here, or end of bar 5 and cut. That's already been done, and that. So we've chopped it up into bars, 2 bar chunks and 1 bar chunks. So here I'm happy with E minor to start. Here I want to change this to A minor. I'm going to make it a bit more funky. Let's take it to A minor 7. Make it sound a bit more cool. And then we're going to do, you'd be guessing what on earth is chords he going to choose. So I've got C major 7. And then we've got, I think we're going to go to G major 7. G major 7. Then here I'm going to go to, I'm wanting, this is relatively complex chord progression, but might as well. I'm looking for F sharp minor 7, which is that. G flat minor 7 is the same thing. And finally, the ever popular B7, which will lead back into my chord of E minor. So let's see what that sounds like. We've changed all the chords just by the transposing. So that's nice, and I'll put the loop thing on again, the cycle mode on, and it'll just cycle around that. So the next thing I would do with a class, if we'd given them a chord progression, now the chord progression might not be as complex as that, it might be much simpler, maybe just E minor, A minor, E minor, A minor, and maybe the occasional C or G chord. But what I'm going to do then is, I've made a note of that structure, that 8-bar structure, which might be the A section of a 3-section piece, an A, B, A, and that would build it up to 24 bars very, very quickly and easily, just using normal techniques of compositional techniques, and a ternary form thing, or an ABA, or whatever. So anyway, add new track. I want a bass line, so I'm going to put in a bass guitar, and it defaults to electric guitars, so I come across to guitars and bass, but I come here to bass electric, and then I've got a whole bundle of different types of bass. I'm going to choose this one called Clayton Electric. And here it is here. I give it a little bit of reverb. And I'll maybe put it down an octave for me. Okay, so here we go. Very simply, I'm just going to record a bass line. I'm going to use E's here, A's here, C's here, G's here, an F sharp, and a B. I might do a tiny little variation, but not much. Try and keep it simple. Here we go. And I'll give myself a metronome countdown. So then we'll tighten that up so that it is tight with the whole thing, so quantized to the nearest eighth, and that becomes like that. Okay, so there's the bass. Then we're going to add some drums. Add your track. We'll go to a loop. Pick drums, favourites, bread and butter, bitty basics. Picked one. Then I'm going to add the guitar. Okay. Just play along with it. So I'll show you the keyboard. What we really want to do is put it up a bit, so I'm going to up an octave or two. Right, I'll just play something very simple into this. Back to the beginning, record, here we go. So we're in the key of E minor. Okay. And then we've got all our MIDI data which we can mess about with and do as we please with. Now just while I'm here in the guitar and playing it, I'm going to show you how we can put effects on the guitar. So we come to this little icon here, and I can go to effects and add an effect, and you'll see there's a whole bundle of different effects. So I'm going to go there in a second once I've got the piece of music moving again. So play it, and go to effects. You can add effects and try them out in real time, and so you see what you like and what you want. Okay, so moving swiftly on to the last thing. Maybe we are running short of time and I'm going too slow. Maybe I should stop for a second and ask folks if they want to say something. Dave?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'll just allow the unmute and see if anyone would like to ask a question live. So you now have the power to unmute your microphone if you wish, people. Oh, here we are.
Stop sharing for a minute, so see if anyone wants to say anything.
Very good. Don't be shy, people.
Or I can keep going and show one more thing, but
yeah.
Okay. My students won't necessarily be working with a keyboard in front of them. They may be trying to work on a Chromebook or something. So how would that, if we have 20 students in the class at a time, how would that, I know they really like Soundtrap. Some of them have used it for me. So I felt I really needed to look into it as something we should do as a class, rather than just a few kids who know how to do it and show me what they've done. Just the connecting. of
Okay. Well, the next example that I show, I was actually going to maybe use my USB keyboard, but I won't. I'll make a point of not using it. And I will exclusively only do my next little demo using what they will have.
okay,
Would that
great.
be worth looking at? Thank you, Maureen.
Okay, yes.
Right, so I shall endeavour to show you something along these lines. Right, here we go.
You, I'm not sure if you can tell. I'm a Kiwi, not Australian.
Great.
You can't tell.
I can't particularly tell, no, but
No, they never
like,
could when I lived in England either.
no, you've got a very nice sounding voice. But if I was more tuned in, then I maybe would pick up, because I've been in Australia and I do know New Zealand folks, and we've actually got a relative who lives in Dunedin. So we're not
Very good. Good
totally.
Scottish city.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. Anyway, okay, so let me see if I can share my screen again, Maureen. Here we go. Right, so I'll enter the studio. And this last little demo thing that I'm going to do, again, we'll jump in, click on music. By the way, the demos is here. It's got a whole bundle of really exciting, amazing stuff. Huge range of demos that you can mess about with and try out. But I'm just going to new project. So, what I was going to do was use what we call a MIDI loop. The last demonstration we did was an audio loop of a guitar, and the audio loop, we chopped it up into different chords. So, here we go. Let me just get my brain in gear. So what I'm looking to do is guitar. Sorry, I didn't even need to type that, but I did for some reason. Favorites. Right, this is the one I'm looking for, and I'm just going to click on it. But what I wanted to do was, before I did that, well, I can actually do it retrospectively. I can change the key. I want it to be in the key of A minor, which was going to be much easier for young people to play in, even on a QWERTY keypad, because there's less accidentals. So change it to A minor. Let's see if it's changed. It hasn't. Let me just start in A minor. I'll just do that 3-dot thing and delete the track and start again. Let's listen to this one. This one. And then this is the one we want. Okay, we're in the key of A minor. There's my 95 tempo that I was looking for. I'm going to take my metronome off. And then I'm going to put in a nice beat. This is one we like. Okay, so when we want to add some notes, as Maureen was suggesting, without a USB keyboard, go to Add New Track. We'll go to Piano Keyboard, and I'm going to choose a Rhodes piano. Maybe I'm showing my age with all these old electric pianos. Rhodes. Anyway, it's already got a wee bit of reverb on it. And using the QWERTY keypad, we've got so maybe you limit the young people to 3 notes for their. So you get the guitar MIDI loop, you get the drum beat, and then we would like you to create a little piece of music just using 3 notes. And the 3 notes I'd like you to use are A, G, and E. Now there is see they do come up, but it's related to the QWERTY as well. So there's a bit of rubbing your tummy and patting your head sort of thing going on for some people. But anyway, I'm going to try and record in with this. So I'll press record, and I've got my metronome off, but never mind. Okay, So I've done that, and there's my MIDI data. So I can go in here and expand it a little bit and have a look at it. So I could quantize it, of course, but I could also adjust the notes. Let's just quantize it. So and select all the notes, quantize to the nearest, do it to the nearest 16th, so they're all tightened up a little bit. And if I want to move a note, even although I've only been able to play in the notes A, G, and E in my little improvisation thing, you might say, right, what other note of the chord of A minor might work in a little piece? And they might say the third C. Oops. There's a C, and there's a C. Okay, so made a couple of little changes, and you can edit it any way you like, but here's the piece we've now got. Okay, and these notes were very short, so if we want to stretch them out or make a little bit more of them, we can do that. So that is the type of thing. And then to create a bass line, again without using the USB, I'm going to add new track and create a bass. And this time we'll have a bass electric, and we'll do a clean jazz, which sounds like this. Oh, sorry, I said I wouldn't use my USB keyboard. It's this. So I'm going to make up a little bass line. But the beauty is I don't need to play anything in, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this MIDI loop, just copy it, move the playhead to the beginning, come down to the jazz bass guitar, and then paste. I do Command V, and it pulls the whole thing in. I'll make it all a little smaller so we can see what we've got. So what I did there was I copied the electric guitar part, which is MIDI notes, into the bass part, without knowing even what the chords are. And then I'm going to edit in the bass. One other thing I'm going to do is, see this here? This is called the bass region, the first 4 bars, and then the second 4 are what's called the shadow region. And you'll see why they're called that when I do that, because if I moved a note here, it changes it in the shadow region as well. So I don't really want that. I want it all to be in the same, I want all the notes to have equal autonomy. So I'm going to create a region, and they're now all of equal. Sorry, I don't know what's happened. I've made a mess of something. I should have done it from the top. Anyway, the point is this. I'm going to double click on here. I'm going to grab these notes, and I'm going to create a bass line. Now, this, what I'm going to do is get rid of these 2 and these ones. Right, here we go. And then I'm going to pull all this down an octave. That's an F. Pull it down an octave. Okay. And then that's an F. That's a D. I'm going to draw in an E. That's F, E, D. That will be an A. I'm going to draw in a C. That's an A. I'm going to drop down to a G. Draw them in. There's an A. There's an F. What might be a good link note? Maybe an E from the ACE minor chord. Okay, and there's an example of what you can do. Now this shadow region has copied that as well. Sorry, I didn't show that terribly well, but here's what it will sound like. And then what I can do is, if we want to, the last thing in this little exercise would be to give the colour, add new track, and go to vibraphone. Now vibraphone comes under keyboards broadly, pitched percussion, steel pans, timpani, all sorts. Vibraphone. Okay. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and pull it down to here, put the playhead to where you want it to be, and Command V, and it comes in here. And we'll have the Rhodes playing this bit, but the vibraphone not playing, doubling on that. So we get rid of that. Make it a wee bit louder, the vibraphone. Whoops, sorry, I've moved it. There we go. And the Rhodes, you could guess what I might do there. I'll take it out here. And so without using a USB keyboard, we've made up a little arrangement where we've got a MIDI guitar at the top, an audio loop for the drums, a little Rhodes piano that we played in with just 3 notes on the QWERTY keypad. We've taken the bass from this here. The other thing I would do here is jump into the guitar part and take out the bottom notes, so they're not in any way clashing or messing up my bass line. And hey presto, you could call it painting by numbers maybe if you want, but I think it's quite a musical activity because you've got to use your ear as well to see what's working. And here, this is what we've got. Okay, and you might say, are you happy with that vibraphone melody, or would you like it to finish on a... And then you play it back. And it is a musical activity. If you want, you click off cycle mode here, and you can move this to the playhead to here just to audition and listen to this little bit. Just press play. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Does that answer your question at all, Maureen?
Thank you very much. That was great.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm showing you examples. Clearly you would apply what you see in your own situation to your own level of ability of youngsters and what they can or can't do. But what I would like to encourage you to be thinking of in music terms with Soundtrap, it's very intuitive and relatively straightforward and non-complex and quite easy to build up into nice little music pieces that can be used for assessment and all sorts. Also, you can translate it into score writing if you have a score writing program like Noteflight, for example, just by one click, and it takes you imports the thing straight into Noteflight. Or you can export the MIDI data. So when it says there's an option on screen export, you can export the MIDI into, for example, Sibelius if you use Sibelius, and whatever you've created in that can be, you can then edit your piece in Sibelius if you particularly wished. And you can also import from Sibelius files, MIDI files from Sibelius into Soundtrap. So it's all very flexible in that sense.
And to answer the question, there's one in here in the chat, does it work with MuseScore, Alan? And I think the answer is yes, because MuseScore will read MIDI and export MIDI, etc., just like Sibelius and Noteflight and all those apps will.
Absolutely. It'll work with any score writing program that deals in MIDI, yeah. What it doesn't do, it won't take an audio track or file and translate that into score writing. We haven't got that technology sorted quite yet.
Yeah, there's certain things that are in the domain of locally installed, much more powerful audio sequencing applications and editing applications. But Soundtrap is slowly catching up, I've found, over the years. We see these features increase more and more. I wanted to ask one question just to jump in. The multi-track capacity of Soundtrap at the moment is limited to 2 channels if you have a stereo microphone or an audio interface with 2 inputs. And that, as I understand it, is a limitation of Google Chrome and HTML5 and how the audio can be routed through it. Are you aware of anything that might be changing in that technology and then thus within Soundtrap perhaps down the track?
I'm not aware of that being happening, but I am aware that the developers are constantly responding to requests from the education community. So if folks felt that it was important for Soundtrap to have that facility, if they were to let me know, I would certainly funnel it through to these guys. Other issues that they're asked about is they're looking for more time signatures. At the moment, we only deal in 3/4 and 4/4. Some folks would like flexibility of 5/4, 7/4, 6/8, all sorts, which is quite right. Also sounds, people would like an oboe sound, which I don't think we've got. We've got clarinets and flutes, but we don't have any oboes. So there's a few things, but I would say that Soundtrap sits in the middle of, it's not exclusively an entry level thing. It sits in the middle, and it's not a Pro Tools either. It's really accessible for young people, I would say from age 8 upwards quite easily, to senior students. And senior students can actually use Soundtrap to provide compositional assessed elements at that senior level. So it does have that ability.
There's a question here, Alan, from Tanya. What is the youngest age group you've actually used this with? Sort of ties into what you were just saying a little bit, I think.
Okay. Well, the youngest age group I've personally worked with, me personally, has been, as I say, 8 years old. Oh, well, unless you count my granddaughter, who's 3, who I've actually had her do a Soundtrap track with 3 tracks on an iPad, but then I'm sitting with her, she's pressing things. So young people are quite incredible about their capacity for digital learning, faster brains than most adults on learning in that way. I think with support, youngsters as young as 5, 6, 7 could, with big support, use Soundtrap. But being autonomous learners, I would say you're looking at from 8 years upwards.
All right. Do we have any more questions for Alan at this stage from everyone? I've got a good couple of dozen of you on the meeting. Yes, do chime in now if you have a burning question you've been holding back. All right. So if not, I might just quickly share my screen before we wrap up, Alan. There we go. Cool. All right. So just briefly before we wrap, thank you once again, Alan. It was some fantastic, informative demonstration and a lot of good questions getting answered along the way as well. Just to wrap up with a little bit of information here, if you are entirely new to Soundtrap, you can sign up at musicednet.com or just email us at any one of these email addresses if you'd like to sign up for a 90-day trial. If you've got an existing trial that is like a 30-day one that you get from the Soundtrack website or whatever that's about to expire, get in touch and we can have that extended to 90 days if you'd like a bit more time to evaluate it. And if you were to purchase an annual subscription now, you'll have it extended until the end of 2022. So the window of that being a benefit is closing, of course, but nonetheless, there it is. And just to let everyone know, in case some of you weren't aware, that we're having a second podcast starting at 5:30 Adelaide time, 6 o'clock Eastern time, in half an hour or 25 minutes now, specifically focusing on podcasting with Soundtrap, something Alan's got a lot of experience with as well. All right, we've got thank yous, just making sure we haven't missed any last minute questions. Need to do more training as a teacher. Do you do any training online? I think that's a question to you.
Yeah, well, I work as a consultant with Soundtrap, and available to help anybody. Normally, the best way of managing that, rather than piecemeal with individual schools, I think if you wanted another opportunity, we would do it through Music EdNet and get a variety, a range of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to mention I've done lots of online remote access training sessions with teachers on Soundtrap and Noteflight, Sibelius, various other things. So yeah, by all means get in touch if you'd like to organise a one-on-one, or we can do something over Zoom with a group of teachers, that sort of thing, exactly like what we're doing here. And it can be more focused on exactly what you want to do. So yeah, get in touch and we'll talk more about that indeed. Yes, so any email address will get to us, Marilyn. So yeah, use the Soundtrap at Music EdNet, or just my David at Music EdNet. Yeah, we'll get it no matter what, as long as it's a Music EdNet email address. All good, cool. We better let Alan have a break because he's got another one to deliver in an ever narrowing gap now. So let's finish this meeting here, and hopefully we'll see all of you back in another 15-20 minutes or so. All right, thanks again, Alan.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Pleasure.
Bye for now, folks.